packets.
Yeah, I think I saw it in the paper.
Does anyone want to read the civility invocation tonight?
Wheels does.
Okay, I guess I'll be reading it.
I can do it.
You want to do it? All
Or
right.
I can do it again. I tried to just do it all in one breath. Mine too.
Oh, yeah, that's right, you actually
I
never wanted
probably
to.
sped read.
I forgot about that.
I tried to do that, so I slowed it down.
Right.
I want to read it every time.
Ooh, this is nice.
The spot.
And did you get one?
Donna? Oh, I
You have.
Can I keep? All right, cool. How much? That's nice. Addition there.
The little one there is the tunnel trail.
Ooh.
Clean up for. Now the tunnel is empty.
Just pavement, though, right?
Looks like it's written in Sharpie.
Just Valley Bottom. It's the new trail map.
Okay, I have 6 o'clock. If everyone could please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And could you take roll call, please?
Nacarado? Here. Martin?
Here.
Montana?
Here.
Critelli?
Present.
Pappenfort?
Present.
Stevens?
Here.
The quorum is present. Oh, Mayor Short.
Here.
Apologize.
That's okay. Just didn't want anyone to think I was absent. Councilmember Pappenfort will read the civility invocation this evening.
We are here working together to create a thriving community. It is the intention of the Salida City Council to promote civil communication by adopting the following guidelines for speaking to the public in the City Council chambers. It is our hope that by acting in this manner, we can help create a safe space for people to share their perspectives and opinions. We honor the opportunity to be engaged in the process of governance for the benefit of our community. We acknowledge that each of us brings a unique perspective to this conversation and that our perspectives may differ. We challenge ourselves to value varying points of view and hold all contributions as equally important. We understand and accept that while we may sometimes disagree, we can always be courteous and kind. We commit to respectful language, avoiding rumor, harsh criticism, or personal accusation, even when feeling emotionally charged. We will, to the best of our ability, speak thoughtfully and listen with attention, respect, and curiosity. We are confident that there may be even better solutions than any of us have thought of, which may be discovered through civil conversations. We affirm our support for women's rights, including equal pay, equal treatment under the law and in the workplace, and the right to determine choices that impact the direction and personal values of one's life, including all individuals' reproductive health choices. We commit to the City of Salida being a hate-free zone and declare and affirm a policy of non-discrimination on the basis of a person's race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, age, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, marital status, military or veteran status, socioeconomic class, medical condition, or physical or mental disability.
Thank you very much. And next up is the consent agenda. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda this evening?
Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to hear more about the matching funds of $420,000 out of our housing fund. I just want to really just hear that narrative out loud as far as
Sounds
what
like
that
you're
means.
gonna, sounds like you're gonna get a tag team.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
As far as the matching goes, and as far as the health of the fund in general, and yeah.
Yeah, we currently have in the housing fund an accumulation of about $2 million. And in the budget for 2024, the budget, as you recall, was adopted in October, and, the details, we're still in the works as far as what our contribution was going to be towards South Arc, but we do have funds available in the housing fund. And this will help with that project.
Yeah, and as far as like when it comes to that match of those grants, so that allowed us to unlock $6 million. Is that, do I have that right?
Let's see, the total amount that we're striving towards intergovernmental and grant combined is about $7 million, isn't it? $4 million in grants. Okay. Okay. Now, you probably, in a few months' time, will see an amendment proposed for the housing fund, and that is because although our match is 420, we have to build in the total cost with the offsetting revenue. So the net amount is the 420. And I don't have the full amount in the budget, and it will take 2 years to spend that amount.
There's another grant that we received as well that requires matching funds that are also taken out of the housing fund. And that match is 27%, I think.
For
So,
what? I'm
I
sorry.
don't- The Strong Communities grant, so there's
yeah.
another
Yeah, there's 2
300,000,
grants that
I
are
think.
contributing.
Okay, great.
Looks like you got off the hook, David.
That's all I had, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, I move to combine and approve the consent agenda.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Pappenfort, seconded by Councilmember Curtelli. The motion is to combine and approve the items on the consent agenda. Further discussion?
Stevens,
Yes.
Curtelli,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
The motion
Great,
passes.
thank you. And next up is citizen comment.
Sorry.
Thanks. And first up, we have Adam Martinez.
Hello, good evening to all of you. I wanted to comment, wanted to thank the city about doing something about the 610 Walnut Street property. It is more cleaned up. I think that her vehicles are out of there. I think the only thing that we need to do is wait for the court so we could decide whether the city takes over the property or what. I think that the city's message has been kind of vague because she's not allowed on the property and then the police says they are. I would like some guidance in that. And then second of all, I'm glad that Mr. Lady is here because the construction on Oak Street, I am not supportive of the bike lanes. I think it's very dangerous. I think that people are going to, I think that there's a lot of red flags. People are going to get hurt with as busy as road as that is. And in essence, and I think that needs to be taken a look at. And then also, I put in your packet, I'm kind of really disturbed on why you would keep somebody as a city attorney who has issues with alcohol and drunken driving, and I just don't think that is good for the city to keep. Right, I know it was 2 years ago, but I think that there was a lot of red flags there, and in essence, it doesn't matter whether she was on the clock or not. I think that the mayor sent the wrong message in defending her, and because I just don't think that we need that kind of character in office. And then finally, I will like to, in essence, comment about the four-day work week. I don't think that it is beneficial to the city, and we've never had that going on a slide. I think Dan was right about in essence the schools doing it, but the county never did that, and I would just like some correction on that. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you. And then next up, we have Carrie Mesh.
Thank you, Mayor Shore and Council. Before I get started, I just want to tell you, you can tell I have allergies, so I'm having some trouble. I'm going to leave behind what I'm saying, so is Chris, who do I give it to? just somebody over there?
Yeah, yeah, or
Okay.
you, I mean,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
So that you guys have a copy of what I'm saying, because it's going to be hard to listen to. Good evening. I want to update you on my findings surrounding the Poncha Sewer moratorium recently. I urge you to review the supporting packet I'm providing. If you agree with my findings, there is no moratorium justification, and a revote is in order. Please be transparent and justify past actions in public. I have reviewed Salida's own Providence engineering reports, which demonstrate the moratorium was prematurely enacted. An emergency ordinance without public opportunity to question the supporting documents was not justified. Poncha's number of existing homes plus approved future units does not reach the figure City Attorney Nina Williams has used for over a year to justify the moratorium. Your own Providence report from March 22, which is what Nina cites, shows Nina's math is incorrectly inflated. The 22 Providence report states there were 552 existing homes in Poncha and approximately 500 approved future units. This yields 1052, insufficient to trigger the alarming 80% emergency moratorium, which she states. In May of 23, Nina wrote our attorneys that as of January 23, there were 688 existing Poncha units attached to the sewer, but then she added the 22 approximately 500 approved but unbuilt units to that number and arrived at 1188, enough to justify 80% alarming capacity. The problem is she added 136 existing homes to the 22 report, getting to 688, but she didn't diminish the approved but not built from 22 by 136. Additionally, 2 developments totaling 180 Poncha units in your report were listed as approved in the unbuilt 500 numbers, but they weren't already approved for sewer. Ute Development and Poncha Mesa Senior Housing did not have sewer agreements adding up to 180 units. Furthermore, both developments were sold to the town of Poncha in early 23 for parkland. In addition, those 180 units shouldn't have been added to capacity, and they shouldn't have been removed before council voted on the moratorium, but they weren't. Nina's number of existing homes plus yet to be built continues to be reported at 1188. My numbers subtract the 136 that were already built when she began stating these numbers and the 180 that the town owns for a park. 872 is the number your own reports would come to. That's not an alarming level. 3 members of this council were not seated for the June 23 moratorium vote, but you're responsible for the outcomes. 3 others voted for the moratorium based on what I think are flawed numbers. Salida's ill-informed actions have caused incredible damages to many and the housing market. Please do the right thing and fix it.
Thank you. And then if you just want to bring those, up here, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Yeah. And then, do we have anyone online?
We do. Mr. Kurth? One moment, please. We're unmuting you.
He's self-muted.
Nope. Mr. Kurth, you're self-muted. Can you try to correct that? There you go. Here.
Are you there?
Go to audio. Go to check mic. Speakers. He's not coming over again. I'm surprised I said that 6 feet out there again.
Mr. Kurth, can you speak and see if we can hear you?
Is it just a mute issue, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the issue is.
Well, I mean, Mr. Kirk, hopefully you can hear me. We obviously can't hear you, but if you want to, feel free to reach out to me tomorrow. I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you. But it does not appear that we're going to be able to hear you tonight.
He said thank you.
Okay, great. Awesome. Okay. All right. That finishes citizen comment and brings us to ordinance 2024-07, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Salida, Colorado, amending Chapter 16, Article 13 of the Salida Municipal Code regarding inclusionary housing to further promote and assist the development of workforce housing. And this is a second reading and a public hearing. And I will hereby open the public hearing and turn it over to staff to summarize their report. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you. Amanda, could you please bring up the presentation?
Can you bring up the presentation? Okay.
Yes. So this is ordinance 2024-07, amending the inclusionary housing ordinance. And at the first reading of this amendment, we did go in detail of what's kind of contained, what the substantive changes were to this ordinance. And one of the questions that came up was, that we didn't dive into at that time, was what's the history of inclusionary housing and why do we keep making changes to it? So I'm just providing a very brief summary of that for you tonight. So it was first approved by council in 2018. And the purpose of inclusionary housing, both at that time and today, is to promote the construction of housing that is affordable to the community's workforce. It is to retain opportunities for people that work in the city to also live in the city. It is to maintain a balanced community that provides housing for people of all income levels. And it is to ensure that the housing options continue to be available for very low income, moderate, and middle income residents, for special needs populations, and for a significant portion of those who work and live in the city. So everything that we have done to this ordinance since starting in 2018 through this evening's proposal is all towards the goal of that purpose statement. Since 2018, so there was a need for it in 2018, and that's why the City Council took that step. Since 2018, the median home price in Chaffee County has risen 78%, while the average median income in Chaffee County has risen 40%. So home prices have risen twice as fast as the AMI. And so that is why we have had to go back and make some adjustments to how this works, both seeing how it's playing out in real life as well as addressing these issues. So next slide. So the first modification was done in 2022. In response to rapid market changes at that time, a fairly comprehensive update was done to the inclusionary housing ordinance. Some of the big things that were done at that time were that it was modified from 1 out of 8 units to 1 out of 6 units had to be affordable. It raised the AMI target range for ownership units up to include that 160% AMI. It expanded the inclusionary housing requirements to apply to minor subdivisions, condo plats, and duplex conversions. Added those to what it already applied to, which were annexations, PDs, and major subdivisions. And then it added density bonuses to the R2 zone district. The other districts already had density bonuses and other dimensional standard bonuses in them. So that was 2022, coming off the rapid rise, primarily due to the pandemic and market rate housing prices. Then in last year, in 2023, there was a slight change that was made primarily in response to the higher interest rate environment, and that was to add a 10% income buffer on ownership units. And that was something we'd seen a number of other jurisdictions do that have inclusionary housing, And we set it at 10% because that gives you a larger pool of qualified applicants. So here we are 1 year later with a few more changes for your consideration. These are what we went over at the last meeting, and just very briefly, to increase that income buffer from the 10% it is now up to 19%. Once again, just getting the most robust pool of applicants we can. To decrease the AMI target range for ownership units, ratcheting it back to that 100 to 140% AMI. Partially because with the increased income buffer, that allows more applicants to qualify at the 100%. That was part of the concern back in 2022, was that someone at 100% was going to have a really hard time qualifying. But now that we have this somewhat robust income buffer, we can bring that back down. We can also, there are units out there in the market rate range at 160% that would be competing with the deed restricted units, is something we've seen in the last couple of years as prices have not raised as rapidly as they did going up to 2022. Then thirdly, to modify the timing of the fee and lieu payment. I won't get into the details of that. We went over it, but happy to answer questions. And then to reduce the maximum household AMI when somebody who owns an ownership unit that's restricted, the AMI of the person that they can rent it to, should they need to rent it for, 6 months or a year, per the deed restriction. So in summary, that's what it is, and I am happy to go into detail on any of this or answer any questions that you have now. The next slide does have the motion for you when you're ready.
Questions for Catherine?
Thank you for that summary, Catherine. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so last time when we met, I mentioned a code audit, and I wasn't necessarily referring to just the land use code in general as a whole. I was kind of referring more to what's been done in BV under the direction of, it was Joseph Tipple who did it. They did a housing affordability code audit. And I was wondering if we've done anything like that specifically is looking at how the process of our affordable housing is working. With the idea of incentivizing versus requiring. Something that he mentioned was that they do a housing zoning incentive instead of the inclusionary zoning that we do. So I was just, I guess, asking again, because I think last time it wasn't clear what I was asking.
Okay, thank you for that
Yeah.
and for the added detail. And I can't speak to exactly what BV has. I'm not that familiar with it, but I can say that we are doing a number of things. We have a grant through the state of Colorado right now, and one of the things that I am tasked with through that grant and the community development department is achieves the I think the same end goal that you're looking for in how do we expedite affordable housing projects, how do we incentivize them, and so that is a process we are working through right now. That is through Prop 123 funds, and that we received that grant. It started in mid-April, so we're just kind of in the beginning phases of that, and it is a 2-year grant that we will be committing significant time to that end, with the end goal of speeding up the process to get affordable units on the ground. And they have, through that, they have we have a working group where we talk with any jurisdiction in the state, is part of this group, and we talk about what's working for you, what ideas do you have, and so on and so forth. And that's a regular working group that we're part of. So I believe that all goes towards, is maybe not a code audit per se, but it goes towards the same goal And then with any of those ideas that do come up and we're able to vet in time to put into the new land use code will be captured there. And there might be stuff that comes along after that we'll just, go through this process to implement.
And we are doing a code rewrite as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Yep, Suzanne?
I have a few questions. Thank you for the summary, because I wasn't familiar with some of the changes that were made previous. So as I look at all of these inclusionary housing ordinances, it seems we keep making changes and we're requiring people to do things instead of incentivizing builders to keep building. And these changes kind of affect what they're building at the time, or the 1 in 8 down to 1 in 6. That's a huge jump. It seems, and maybe I don't know how to ask the question, is it driving the cost up for builders and developers, which then again drives the cost up for the purchaser or the renter in that case, as we change these inclusionary housing requirements? Every time we change something.
So I guess I want to take a step back to a beginning portion of your question. And there are incentives in the code. So what I mentioned was the density bonuses. It's
Right.
density bonuses and other dimensional standard requirements that when a development builds the inclusionary housing, they get to use a different set of density and dimensional standard requirements than if they don't build. So those are incentives, and they're designed to then allow you to build more units. So essentially, kind of, you have to build an inclusionary housing unit, and it all depends on the size of the property and the math, but it's quite possible that that was an extra unit that without those density bonuses would not have been allowed on the property. You see what I mean? Like it offsets.
I guess I don't understand that.
So, gosh, if I don't have the numbers memorized, but in a particular zone district, you have to have so many square feet of the lot per unit.
Okay.
So if you have, I'm just gonna use very basic numbers. So if you have a 10,000 square foot lot and you need to have 2,500 square feet per unit under the non-incentive portion of the code, you're not doing inclusionary housing. That means you could put 4 units on a 10,000 square foot lot.
Okay.
But under the incentives, if it lowers that to 2,000 square feet, but you have to build 1 unit of inclusionary housing, you can now put 5 units on that lot, right? So without inclusionary housing, you could do 4 market rate
Okay.
and pay, or we'll just leave it at that. With the inclusionary housing, you can do 5, still the same 4 market rate, and then 1 inclusionary.
But those would be smaller units, so you would.
They would not they wouldn't have to be smaller units. Yes, you're putting more units on the lot, so it would depend on your design,
Okay.
but there's no requirement that they be smaller.
Okay.
You're just allowed that many units on the lot. So that's kind of
The
one of the
incentive.
ways that it balances out. And there's other, we get into lot coverage. We get into parking. The parking requirement is less if you build the inclusionary housing, and every parking space, adds to the cost of a development
And you
as
get
well.
discounts on your system development fees.
Right.
You get a discount on the system development fees. The school fees are waived. So there are things out there that allow it. The other thing is, as we've talked and as we've looked at some of those numbers, and I can pull some of them up, but as we're getting, into that 140% range, it depends on how the developers, what the design is and what the end product is. but there is still some room on the upper range for them to cover their costs and possibly some profit in there, you know, depending on design decisions. So I can't speak to specifically, you know, what costs and, you know, profits are for any developer on any particular thing.
Right, because if there's no profit, they certainly won't build.
Yes, what I can channel Bill the best I can right now and say that we still have applications coming in the door like crazy. So for whatever that's worth.
And we were told when we put this in place back in 18 by some members of the development community that this was going to kill development in Salida. And I know there are a ton of residents in this community today that would have wished that might have happened instead of seeing all the growth we've seen over the past few years. The other thing is in this, I think that's important to note, is by increasing that percentage to 19% over that base 100% or wherever you're starting from, does give the developer some more wiggle room to sell it at a higher price to somebody. So we're being sensitive to the fact that, you know, interest rates are creating some challenges right now.
Yeah, it gives them the ability to potentially maximize that sales price, right? Say at 140%, whereas now it is feasible, and it has happened on a couple of the units out there. We've only had a couple that have gone for sale, where they've had to lower the price from their max allowed sales price to get qualified applicants in there. So that buffer does give them a little more space to maybe not have to lower from that maximum sales price if they have a more robust pool of qualified applicants.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. We don't have an applicant. Is there anyone signed up for public comment?
Is it too late to sign up?
Go ahead now if you want to. Yeah. And I don't know if there's anyone ahead of you. But you can tell me when you sign.
Catherine, can you please grab the sign-up sheet and give it to the mayor as soon as Robin signs up? Thanks.
Thanks. Okay. Okay, Robin, you're up.
Thank you all. I just wanted to speak to the IH ordinance a little bit. Can you go backwards a slide? So I can. In the IH ordinance amendment, actually in 2024, just a few months ago, you all agreed to make the change to fees. And it went down significantly. I think it was, I don't even know anymore because we change every 6 months, but 17 or 20 something to 15 something or 13 something. And if you had X amount of lots, you get a discount. And it essentially, and I remember Mrs. Pappenfort saying specifically, this essentially puts everybody on a level playing field if you're in development. But the reality is, it doesn't, because what we're missing here is the R1 zone district. You are limited. Also, the density bonuses don't apply to developers. And so I just want to bring that up because it kind of speaks to what Ms. Fontana is speaking about. It feels sometimes like there's a lack of equity when everybody doesn't get the same density bonuses or doesn't have the ability because of how they're zoned. So a couple weeks ago when this came to y'all, I thought about it, and it feels just like the most ethical thing to speak my truth to you all, that it doesn't always feel equitable because it does leave out the R1 district, the R1 zone, as well as density bonuses. Because, for example, in our subdivision, we don't get a density bonus. We don't get the same things that somebody that builds 7 or 8 houses builds, because it's not as equitable as you might think, or it doesn't feel as equitable. And that's all I want to say. So I would hope in these changes you consider today is even bringing more changes in the future, which this is a living document. It evolves, and I understand that, and it might not happen tonight, but I hope you'll keep in mind in the future, this will not impact me, but it does impact my neighbors and my friends and all of you, that equity piece really does matter. And so that's it. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you. Anyone online? Okay. Any rebuttal from staff? No?
I can just say that, so for R1 zoning, so right now, R1 is very restrictive, as far as you couldn't do a duplex, you couldn't do multiple principal structures. So at the current R1 zoning, no, there is no density bonus, because there's so little that you can do in R1, except for single-family detached homes. The development, though, that Ms. Najem is speaking about is zoned PD. So it's not R1, so it's a PD. But in R1, she is correct. We do not have the density bonus allowance there.
Okay. All right. Does council have any questions for anyone who spoke tonight?
I have a
Yeah.
question for
Yeah.
Catherine. Does that R1 zoning change much, or you might not know yet with the land use code update?
There are some proposed changes to that, yes.
And then can you talk about the difference between PD and R1?
So a PD is a zoning where the applicant comes in and they can, they have a base zoning because it's just an overlay. But with that overlay, they can then modify the requirements. They can modify the density, the lot sizes. They can do private drives, is something we see frequently. And it's a back and forth with the city. It's a give and take, a negotiated process. You've heard that. And then a state statute just requires that it allowed PUDs if there was a clear public good to be had out of those negotiations. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I guess, Wales, to your point about what's happening up in BV, is there anything that we're missing that you heard that BV's doing that we could poach their good idea if it's out there that we're somehow?
That would be a great conversation for a work session or something.
It was just a question, a philosophical one. I think we're having that right now, but yeah, maybe later we'll discuss.
Are you actually asking me?
We don't have to discuss it now, I guess. It sounds like it's up for voting.
Well, it's a public hearing on a specific topic.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and, without any more questions, close the public hearing and turn it over for preliminary council discussion.
Yeah, I guess just to underscore that this is a living document, ever changing, and because we're very much so pioneering IH in general, we're going to keep finding these coming across unintended consequences. I mean, that just is that is the nature of the beast. But it is just, again, I mean, just to further reiterate, when we go to conferences like CML and hear what other communities are doing to tackle this issue, they are so much farther behind us in that discussion, where it's just like, wow, I had that discussion 5 years ago. So it is, I guess it is one of those things when we have those think tank things, is, I think they're coming to us. We're probably not getting nearly as much as they are from just hearing about our experience, but yeah, and this is just a result of that. Literally, we're going to be, one of the adjustments is something that we're going to be talking about later. and a real project. So I'm glad that we can keep, this is in a way, this is an audit of this particular approach, to hear where we could be doing better or where we've heard that it's not doing as well. And I still gotta believe that this is still better than what the private free market is doing to address inclusionary housing and affordability. So.
I wanted just to add one thing, and to Councilmember Critelli's point, this is a living document. And a good example was back in 18 when this was enacted, it was 1 out of every 8 units, but the developers had the choice of either paying a fee in lieu or building the actual unit. And no surprise, it was a lot cheaper to pay the fee in lieu. We weren't getting any units built. So a great example of adapting the policy to get units built. Because otherwise, we might have a little bit more money in the fund, but you see what building costs are. Getting units actually built is what we need to do. So that's just an example of how that worked. Anyone else?
No, I understand that it's the document can change. It's a working document. And I just want to make sure that, as a council, that we address it again, in 6 months, or especially if they find something that needs to be adjusted, to bring it, to see if those are the adjustments that we should make.
Definitely.
And that was in the agreement when we started inclusionary housing, that because we were on the cutting edge, we would have to revisit it regularly and make tweaks. And the staff has done a magnificent job of guiding us in the tweaks and explaining what the results have been, of what we're doing. And so we're just constantly adjusting, and that's what we need to do.
I'm not seeing any other discussion points.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
move to approve ordinance 2024-07, amending Chapter 16, Article 8, or 13 of the Salida Municipal Code regarding inclusionary housing to further promote and assist the development of workforce housing.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Critelli, seconded by, I'm just going to give it to her,
Sure.
to Councilmember Nacarado, and the ordinance is to move to approve ordinance 2024-07, amending Chapter 16, Article 13 of the Salida Municipal Code regarding inclusionary housing to further promote and assist the development of workforce housing. Further discussion?
Fontana,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Critelli.
Yes.
The motion passed.
Right. And I am going to recuse myself on the next item. It's a continuation of something from the last meeting. I have the applicant helped me with my campaign, donated money to the campaign, and so I'm going to wait out in the hall, and Councilmember Critelli will take over, and I assume someone will call me back, or either that or we'll have another night. Of course. I just won't be able to bring it back for about 10 minutes.
That's fine. Thank you so much.
Okay, so now we are going to be looking at ordinance 2024-08, second reading and holding a public hearing on a substantial amendment to the Greenheart Plan Development and Minor Subdivision located at 535 West 7th Street, and a consideration of requests to waive zoning application fees. And this is presented by Mr. Glenn Van Nimwegen.
Thank you, Council. As you mentioned, this is second reading. It was just 2 weeks ago. Staff presented very briefly this application, and I want to do a quick presentation, but give you a little bit more of the nuts and bolts. And the two previous folks that have been up here actually stole a bit of my thunder, but that's okay. We'll roll with that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the Greenheart Plan Development. Why do we do plan developments? What's their purpose, and why did we use it in this case? And then talk a little bit in my words what the applicant is requesting and why. And I'll tell you where the Planning Commission, who makes a recommendation on a major impact review, where they ended up on this case. So Amanda, if you could move it forward. This is the location of the site. It's just a 1.23 acre site that's north of Longfellow Elementary, south of Poncha Boulevard. It's kind of an unusual site in that it has a little amount of frontage, but most of the acreage is actually off of 7th Street. So some complicating factors. And what was mentioned is it is zoned R1, which is our most restrictive residential district. And they used a plan development overlay to change some of those rules in order to get additional units, additional housing on the site. So next slide, please. So the Greenheart Plan Development, you can barely see it here, created 4 lots, and a minor subdivision was approved by the City Council on May 17th, 2022. And Catherine's absolutely correct. The plan development allows you to change some of those underlying requirements that's in our code in order to make a development happen on a complicated site or get a better design than what the code would actually create. I think the applicant actually looked at this site and thought about just doing 2 units. They could do that per the code. Certainly wouldn't probably put forward our inclusionary housing goals that we have now as well, with the 4 units and putting housing in this difficult infill site. So in this case, we use that plan development to reduce the lot size. R1 says you have to have a minimum of 7,500 square feet. All the units have to be single family. So we used the PD to reduce the lot size on the 2 lots that front on 7th Street and to create a little bit more density. But I know there was a lot of neighbors that were really concerned about this project and protecting that R1 zone, and that's not unusual. But in this case, I think it really made sense to go from lower density down to actually a commercial district on the south side. Hope that someday might be a commercial use there. The other thing they did by creating those 2 additional lots, that meant a private driveway had to be used. And our code says lots have to front on a public street. That's a 60-foot right-of-way. It's pretty difficult to fit on a tight street. So in this case, it was allowed to use a private driveway to the site to get access to the 2 lots to the west. And it's a trade-off. There is some give and take, and somebody mentioned talking about public benefit. In this case, the applicant agreed to a condition that said, we will give preference to the sale of those 2 lots on 7th Street to a local Chaffey County resident and possibly a worker. And that's actually worked out. They've actually sold the lot number 4 to a local family who live and work now in Salida. So it was a good trade-off. And ultimately, we created a site that could be just 2 large lots into some worker housing potentially and other housing. So we got a mix out of it. Okay, next. So the other part of the request is, well, let's see. The first 2 requests is to amend the proposed fee in lieu that this site was mandated to have back in 2022. And that number has been in flux. And I think Catherine talked about the changes to the fee in lieu. That's changed. And the applicant uses the example of Cherry Grove subdivision, which was approved a year prior to theirs in 2021. And basically what was happening there is the fee in lieu was definitely going into flux. And that developer said, hey, wait a minute, I would like to use the old rules and keep them in place for, I think, a period of 5 years. So that's what was approved. The cap went in place, and the dollar per square foot basically froze on that project for a period of 5 years. So they're asking for something very similar with a few changes. The other part is they weren't aware that this was something that they could have worked out through their plan development. Catherine mentioned the R1 is very restrictive. And so no, there isn't incentives that go with building affordable housing in R1 that there is in R2, R3, R4, the other residential districts. So the fees in this case include the application fee, which is $1,500. That's a lot. That is half of what their original fee was to put the PD in place, primarily because it's usually a staff-intensive project. A lot of times you're actually almost writing a new zoning code for a project. So it can be rather complicated. And then we ask for a deposit on top of that, and that's for any extraneous costs that we might have, advertising costs. If we have to send it out for engineering, we basically charge the applicant for those additional fees and I think legal fees. So they get a portion of that cost reimbursement back. And in a case like this where there's not any engineering, not a whole lot to do, they'll get a good deal of that $3,000 deposit back, but we don't know exactly what that number is yet. Next, please, Amanda. So with the Cherry Grove major subdivision, as I mentioned, that applicant asked for, because the fee in lieu was in flux, that let's lock it in for my project for a period of 5 years. And why was there a cap and now there's no longer a cap? Well, the cap is something that I kind of came up with because it was something very new for Salida originally, and there was sticker shock that was a part of that fee in lieu. So I picked 2,000 square feet as kind of that cap, with the idea that that would incent somebody to build a smaller home, smaller footprint environmentally, costs less for the city to serve. It'd be a good thing. So, but you could look at it the other way as well, that, oh, well, it's free above 2,000 square feet or whatever that number is. So it's had kind of a two-edged sword to it, I guess. Their second concern was they had to keep the project in scale with the neighborhood. And I totally agree with that. They were in an R1 neighborhood. They're trying to create a transition zone. There was a lot of pressure to keep the density down. So that did keep the density down, kept them locked into a single family. They weren't able to take advantage of the incentives that we would give somebody who was actually building affordable housing as a part of the project. Let's see, there was another point there that I wanted to make. So basically they were kind of locked in the R1 district. They didn't have a whole lot of flexibility there. They weren't aware of the ability to request a different fee in lieu. I talked about that a little bit. These folks don't do development every day, so it is kind of a learned process. So there could have been a discussion back 2 years ago, so we're having it tonight. And then they listed some larger issues that they've run into in trying to implement their project under our fee in lieu requirements. One is a lot of the fees cannot be financed. There's talk about the county adopting a countywide sales tax to help affordable housing in the county. So are they going to be asked to be double dipped in that case? But too much impact on a small scale development. And I think the staff has done a really good job in trying to do that, to scale back the fee in lieu so that it doesn't hit the smaller developer, because you don't have the economies of scale of spreading those costs over a bunch of different units. In fact, I think when this project started, I think the fee in lieu was about $21 a square foot. And today for this project, it's $10.87. So it's almost been cut in half to where we are today. One thing I want to talk about is, I'm sure you've heard Well, you don't want to set a precedent, right? You don't want to do anything that causes a precedent, and everybody's going to be marching in here. But a plan development, I think, is a unique animal in that it is a unique project. And there's unique aspects to the project that state that maybe the fee in lieu was wrong for this project. It was expensive to put in the improvements. And so there might be some reasons, if you focus on the plan development versus these larger concerns, I don't think we have to be as worried about breaking some kind of precedent or creating some kind of precedent. So a couple of things I just wanted to mention about that project is, again, small site, it was difficult, it was expensive development. They did voluntarily agree to find locals, and they actually were successful on one of those. So with that, let me just go into what the Planning Commission did. Thank you. So on May 28th, the Planning Commission heard the requests. We held a public hearing. And they did recommend approval of basically what you see in the ordinance, which, interesting enough, is 2024-08. But the original ordinance was 2022-08. And what you have before you is amending the fee in lieu so that it's still assessed at $10.87 per square foot, but then there's that cap of $15,748, tying directly back to what the Cherry Grove subdivision was approved. This is for a period of 3 years, but they also added in the caveat because that fee in lieu number has gone up and down. So if the number goes down, they're able to take advantage of a lower per square foot fee in lieu. And this stays in place for 3 years. So if they don't build out the project in 3 years, whatever the rules are at that time go back in place. The city attorney basically gave you a date in the ordinance that's before you. She figured out what 3 years from the effective date is. So that's the only change from what the Planning Commission recommended. And they did recommend that, it's not really their purview, but they wanted to make a recommendation to the city council that they should waive the fees. I know you voted on this last week. I think our city attorney wanted you to ratify it after a public hearing, and you hear from the applicant and staff. So I think she's hoping that you vote on that again, the fee part of it.
Guess our bad. And tie it all together, I guess. Whoops.
So finally, my last slide is basically your proposed motion. So I'd be happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Any questions?
For staff or?
For
Glenn.
to start off with, just for Glenn. No?
I do. So you're saying that it probably wouldn't set a precedence because this is a planned development and it wouldn't set a precedence for other people. I mean, I know this is unique, as I'm sure each one is. But I don't remember, and maybe others do, refunding the fee, amending the fee in lieu, holding it for 3 years, and Cherry Grove, that's one where they did for 5 years. I'm not sure if they refunded it or not. I don't think a planned development like this comes up often, but if someone else were to do this, I do feel like that this would set a precedence to other people to come ask for special requests or special requirements or something such as.
Right.
I mean, and you're saying you don't think it will?
Well, I'm thinking, what I'm recommending is that your reasons for approving this case should be, yes, this was a difficult site, it had a lot of complications, it was expensive to develop, and they were in R1 and they weren't able to maybe recoup the incentives that are built into the code. Versus, yeah, it's too high and it should change. That would be maybe setting a precedent.
Okay. Okay, so, and if I were a plan if I were going to do one and I were paying attention to this, I would certainly come and ask for special consideration for things. And so I hope staff would accommodate, that and help them along as much as the Greenheart subdivision has been given consideration and helped along also.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it sets a precedent that the city is willing to work with the citizens who are developing. It's like smaller developers.
Yes.
It's not setting a precedent that it's going to work out for everyone.
Right.
It's setting a precedent that we are willing to listen.
Right. That's what I would hope other people would take from this, that city and staff are willing to listen and take into consideration other things that are asked for in the process.
And it sounded like those experienced with development are already navigating that negotiation process with the Community Development Department and the Planning Commission.
Yeah. I think one thing we miss in discussing inclusionary housing is that first word, inclusionary. I mean, our goal is to actually every project have some kind of affordable unit in it. And Councilmember Critelli's absolutely right. The initial reaction was, I'll pay the fee. And we end up building all the affordable housing in one place. So the fact that I think in this case where the applicant said, hey, I'll make an effort, and maybe it's not deed restricted, but I'll make an effort to get a local. And in a minor subdivision, we're potentially getting locals housed. It's a good thing.
And I guess the one question I had about the process when it came to the lack of awareness on the negotiability of items in a PD, like how many times does the word negotiation come up during a PD? Or does it ever, or is it a hidden thing, or is it pretty much?
Is it inclusive?
Yeah, I guess, like, should we have like a video about PDs where like a cartoon
Do a
clip,
PD.
like paper clip tells us what it
That'd be fun.
is?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just like help me understand
Yeah.
that part.
Well, I can't speak directly to this case, and actually, Christy Jefferson was the actual planner, and she's not here this evening. I don't think Catherine was here at the same time either, and Bill's not here tonight. To be honest, from a staff standpoint, we don't volunteer things. We do say, okay, what's your issues with the project? Well, we don't have enough frontage. Well, maybe we could do a private drive. But I don't know if staff would say, well, you could circumvent fees by doing X or Y. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's why I like the plan development process. It's something, because not every, development, not every, projects are the same. They're always subject to, changes and different things come up. So, you can't always go directly with, how things are laid out. And
Yeah.
so plan developments, like I say, it's something to come and be able to, build something the way, way it needs to be built, or, for the lot or the place that you're building your subdivision or your house or whatever. So plan developments are
Yeah, and I don't think applicants like going through this process. I think they'd prefer to just meet the rules and go through a minor subdivision, for instance, versus going through public hearings and ordinances and that sort of thing. So
Sure.
it's not an easy.
Any other questions before I open up the public hearing?
I just want to make a comment. It certainly looks to me reasonable to waive the fees in this case that we're talking about because of R1 being so restrictive and not being able to take advantage of other incentives that work on different properties. So I'm in favor of that for that reason. It's an offset. It's not that we shouldn't be charging fees. We have to charge fees. It costs us a lot of money to do this work.
All right, well, with that, I'll open up the public hearing, and do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
Certainly have the applicant, but no public.
Okay. Does anybody in the public want to speak? Would the applicant like to speak on this?
I just want to say thank you, guys. It's been years that we've been going through the ups and downs of fees, and I say we because we're a community together. And I'm thankful, and these nuances do come out, and sometimes I feel like the guinea pig, but I'm okay with that. It is a living document, and we're in it together, and we're trying to make things right. Regarding the reimbursement of the fees, I appreciate, Alyssa, your insight and support. More than just the R1, I think it brings up the question of transparency, and Justin, you spoke to that. The word negotiation, it's not on the website. And even at public meetings, we've had questions about, is the term correct? The word negotiation for plan development. And I'm a developer from your perspective, but I don't feel that way because of our 4 lots that we have, one belongs to our partner, one belongs to us, one belongs to Dustin and Bethany, and we have 1 left. It's not a gigantic thing, but the word negotiation, that's a big topic, and I think you guys need to, have that conversation is how do we become transparent about what this looks like? And that's why I didn't want to come back and do this again, but I didn't know what the process really entailed. Thank you, guys. Thank you for hearing us and dealing with these nuances that come up, and I hope it just makes the city and the affordable housing policy even better in the future. So do you have questions for me or for Andy? Okay, thanks.
And does staff have anything to rebut or to follow up with those statements with?
I don't think so.
Okay. That sounds good. Okay, with that, I think I can close the public hearing and open it up to council deliberation. Who would like to begin?
I'd just like to say thank you guys to the applicants for being, I guess, patient with us and working through this with us and keeping a good, attitude about it with us while we all work through this together. I could say it's a we kind of thing. So thank you guys for coming in and being here and yeah, just thank you.
And thank you for being committed to creating some housing for other people who live and work here, because it is just so needed.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
It's like,
I
don't
move
threaten
to
me like
approve
that.
Ordinance 2024-08 on second reading.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion made by Councilmember Nacarado, seconded by Councilmember Pappenfort to approve ordinance 2024-08 on second reading. And, yeah, does that,
I think we need to vote for that one.
or is that a separate thing?
I think it's 2.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay.
Okay. Nacarado,
Yes.
Davenport,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Montana,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
The motion passed.
And I guess the second thing? To-
We just try it again.
I guess we can discuss that or make a motion.
I'm ready to just offer the motion. I move to approve the applicant's request to waive the Greenheart PD amendment application fees.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Pappenfort, seconded by Councilmember Nacarado, to approve the applicant's request to waive the Greenheart PD amendment application fees. I guess as far as further discussion goes, this is the part where there is a carryover to other parts of the process, other PDs, is that if there is this would be to say that there is ambiguity, that it isn't clear enough, and that it needs to be made clear in some way. There needs to be like a follow-through. Because if we're going to take staff time and then go, hey, we're going to refund because there shouldn't have been this part of the process, then we need to fix it somehow. So
I think that we should look at the application for that, and the application should state what parts are negotiable. Because that's what they're working through, the applicant is working through an application process. That should be instructive enough. That's where to fix the problem. Am I right, Christy?
I mean, the fees that we include in the applications go to staff time, including attorney's fees, so they're costs that are directly associated with the development or the work that's being asked to be completed. Sorry if I didn't understand the.
No, I think it's more like that would be, to refund that would to be an admission that the process could have been clearer, or we are at fault in that way, and
No.
that's why that refund is happening.
Disagree. That is not what I heard Glenn say. That because they're not able to take advantage of incentives that regular PDs can take advantage of, we're offering this up instead. We're not saying we shouldn't have charged fees. That's not what we're saying.
I think
We're
that
not
is
saying
what-
that
That is
we're
what's-
not gonna charge fees in the future. That's not what we're
No,
saying.
no,
That is
that's
what we're
that's what we're discussing. We're talking about application fees. We're talking about a refund because we're doing it a second time. That would be an admission that that the city was at fault for not being clear enough. Therefore, there wouldn't have had to be this second time, the second pass through an application fee.
Maybe Glenn could clarify.
I understand what you're
exactly
saying,
what
Justin,
that-
yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I get it.
I don't know if I'm being super confusing. I don't know. I'm sorry.
I think what you're saying is that if you approve giving back their fees, then somehow you're saying we made a mistake somehow, back 2 years ago.
Totally.
Right.
And that would be, more pointedly, the clarity of a PD being a negotiation, or fees in lieu being negotiable.
Right.
The clarity of that
Yeah.
wasn't there, and that would be us admitting that. Therefore, we would have to, this is a way of solving for that, but also we need to actually have something to solve for that. That would be.
So that could be a precedent, I
Right.
think is what you're saying.
Right, that does, yeah.
Yes,
That is
yes.
that is the precedent here. Because also, it's like, that staff time was already spent, so somebody's paying for it, right? So we're also saying that we're gonna eat that. That's
And
what we're saying.
I agree with Elisa. I think it's a unique situation. We're kind of working through it as we discussed together because it's so unique, and figuring it out as we go, because it was not something that had really been dealt with before. So without saying we made a mistake, I would say this is part of the learning process,
The cost of learning.
the cost of learning.
Is that what you're saying it is?
What are you saying, Glenn?
Up here.
You're confusing
What are you saying
me.
it is?
Trying to delicately
I know.
stay out of this. Christie's right. We have expended staff time, including my time, so there
Yes.
has been cost to bring this back forward to you. Yeah, I think their concern was, hey, we're new to this. We didn't know we could have dealt with this back when we saw the whole project. So it's 2 years later, but we wanted an opportunity to be heard on that. So that's basically
Yeah.
your question to
Right.
answer.
So also what we're saying is if we would have done it, if they would have negotiated first, we might not have as much staff time? Or,
It wouldn't have been brought back to you.
Right.
This
Right.
whole process of the second ordinance wouldn't have had to take up any staff time or council time 2 years ago had we gone through that process. So those are the fees that we're talking about now, is this additional process that has taken
Gobs of
staff time and resources. So those are the fees that we're talking about.
So the first part, when they paid the fees, that still went through staff time?
It did,
Yeah.
2 years ago?
Yep.
Yep.
And so we're not going to charge them for any of that?
We already, that's been paid, check's been cashed. That's been spent. So these are fees associated with the brand-new application that you all just approved.
Okay. Okay.
And I think
Better.
even more specifically, it sounds like all we would have to do is put the word negotiation on the website would have been sufficient.
I'd say we need to see what it says first, so we know if, what we would want to change.
Right. But then that's also, with this, with refunding the application fee, it is also saying that we need to change something.
Yep, I agree.
So that is the precedent there. That's us being on the hook.
So as in we,
The city, yeah.
Yeah,
The description of
this-
PD or,
yes, the description of this needs to be looked at.
yeah. Yeah, that's
By staff.
kind of what comes intrinsically with if we are to go through with that,
This whole thing is about.
then something we are admitting that it's convoluted or on some level we need to change it.
Or, in the situation with R1, there's certain incentives that they can't use. Maybe we look for different incentives that work for that kind of property and put those in place within the next 6-month revision. We see if there's some other way to help them. I still see this as a one-time shot. This is not establishing a precedent of refunding fees.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it is based on this assertion of ambiguity or the applicant was not aware. So then we'd have to follow up by saying, how do we make future applicants aware? So that we don't have to have this happen, where we're expending staff time. and
Nina,
then
are you
refunding
wanting to?
that.
Just trying to talk.
She's moving her lips and we can't hear her.
And her microphone is on.
We're having, sorry, Nina, hold on. We're having in council chambers issues.
So it's not that we could go ahead and,
Just
right
wrap
now,
it,
we
Mr.
could
Chris.
still vote on B right now, because and then direct
Nina, do you?
staff.
Nina wants to weigh in on.
Nina wants to weigh in.
Yeah, I think.
Because this is language that's in the municipal code. Confusion or not, there's language in the municipal code that talks about this process.
Okay.
Mm.
So right now, we're just trying to vote on giving the fees
Yeah,
back for what's
Or not
going on.
charging them.
Refunding the
Not charging for this
fees.
last fees.
Eating
And then we
cost
can,
of staff time.
then we can talk about going back to,
What was the total fee amount, Glenn, did you say earlier? Was it
Yeah.
3,000?
For tonight, it's 1,500 is the set fee, and then the deposit of 3,000.
Thank you.
I hear you, Nina.
Okay. Oh, that's
Are you
weird.
hearing me now?
They can't hear us, though. I don't think.
Oh, yeah, that happened to you last week, right? Because I
on,
was
Nina.
there last
We
week.
can hear you.
We can hear you.
We can hear your
Yeah,
frustration. I'm sorry, I
It's,
called.
it's not, it's not important for me to speak. It's just, it doesn't need to, like,
No.
sometimes I need to clarify things, like, the code clearly says what people are talking needs to be on the, it's like so stupid, but anyway.
Amy said they're
Nina,
working.
can you hear us?
From the
She
mouths
said
of
it's their
babes.
problem. and they're
Nina.
working on it, I think.
Oh, okay.
Hello?
Nina, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you too.
Basically the opposite
Oh,
problem.
great. I just wanted to say that the code says in the plan development section that it is a negotiated zone district. So I don't know what people mean when they say website should be more clear, but our code does say that. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, there is wording. That the
Yes,
word
in our code.
negotiation
Is in it.
is in it.
You should
Yep.
just read it.
Okay.
I'm happy, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nina. I appreciate that. Yeah, I guess my snafu still stands, is that the refund would be based on an assertion that this was unclear and hence had to come back for a second round. And if we're going to refund those fees, we're admitting, yes, it was unclear. We will try to do better next time so it doesn't happen. And that's
But Nina just
Totally
said
the-
it says that it's negotiable.
right.
What's
So
his
then,
dad?
yeah, I guess then That is the debate, whether or not it's clear or not.
And other plan developments could possibly come up and say, this is unclear.
Right.
They do their
or-
homework.
And that's
I mean,
not
Robin did
why
her
we're
homework.
not charging the fees. We're not charging the fees because of the public good of the project. And we're doing it in exchange for the lack of other incentives. So please get off that dead horse.
Yeah, it's not, it's a horse that's valid. Again, the staff time was expended. And if the applicant isn't paying for it, then we are paying, we're saying the taxpayer's paying for that staff time. That's all. And I think that's a proper horse for me to stand on, so, or sit on, or I don't know how you ride a horse. Anyway, is there any new parts of this discussion? I mean, there is a motion on the table. Anything else anybody else wants to chime in on? All right, I guess we're ready to vote. Thanks.
Stevens,
Yes.
Martin,
No.
Cartelli,
No?
Nacarado,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
Pappenfort.
Yes.
The motion passed.
Right. Now we can,
Invite the mayor back.
air back. Thank God.
Thanks, Robin. She's coming right back.
Good evening. Is Dan coming back in?
Yeah, I think we
she's
gotta,
grabbing
I think he went to Taco Bell or something. I don't know. Who knows?
Oh, in Canyon?
All the way in Canyon.
In
I
Leadville?
think it took about that time. There's one in Leadville? Oh, wow. I don't know that.
'Cause there's- Thank you so much.
No, that's not, no.
Nope. Who's in that room?
This is not, does anybody have a phone?
Who's left?
Not me.
Someone missing their phone.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have the police here, they can investigate.
Dan found
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you use the 24-09 ordinance that we've had a public, or not a public hearing, a work session about, a first reading about, and in between the last reading in council and today, we've hit a little bit of a snag. You do have the authority to still move forward and approve this evening. However, our new city attorney is requesting that we hold off for a bit. What happened was.
Or the municipal attorney, new municipal attorney.
Court.
Municipal court clerk.
Okay, okay,
Or not
okay.
court clerk, municipal
Prosecutor.
prosecuting attorney.
Got it,
Is
got
the
it.
word I'm looking for.
Okay.
When we started this back in 2018 in the conversation with the community partners, it went about 400 different renditions. We've had multiple people in and out of positions in the other organizations. Matt Krob was the attorney when we approved this through the municipal court attorney. And where we're at today is she has some concerns and wants to change a little bit of the language in it to help her prosecute things when they come to court. So she's asked that we give her time to review it, meet with the group, give her opinions to everybody, and then we bring it back to council. So I would ask that we delay this, and by doing that, we don't set a date until we get this whole group organized and have our meeting, and then we'll renotice it and come forward again here in a month or so.
Okay, so the idea would be to continue it, but without a date certain, just
That is-
continue it indefinitely?
That is correct.
Okay, awesome. Any questions anybody has there?
You said it was just the language that she's wanting to.
Yeah, there's some stuff in this, there's a contributed to the delinquency of a minor statute that kind of mirrors some of the stuff that's in here. That's a district court case, that's a felony case. And there's some provisions that are in there for a mother, father to allow their child to drink during whenever. Most of the time, it's like holidays, here, have a glass of wine or whatever. She wants to add that language into ours and then change a should to a shall. And after meeting with the group, may have a couple of other things that she wants to address, but mainly it's just mirroring more of what's on the state charge.
Thank you.
Would just love to state that without setting a date, I would love to see this happen as soon as possible.
Sure. Yeah, it's just a matter of, we need to coordinate with about 7 different entities to meet on a certain day to talk about it with her. I would hope we can get that done probably by the second meeting in August.
And it sounds like all these different community partners are really motivated on this, so.
Yeah, I don't see it taking more than a month or so max. I just don't want to be locked into a date if we can't coordinate meeting together.
It is summer.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So when that happens, do we have to,
Before homecoming would be good.
if they just change a few wording and such, do we change what we vote on to a first reading again? Do we do a second reading? Because right now we're on a second reading, but we want to hold off on the second reading.
I think we're just continuing the second reading, isn't that right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd
There's
come
an
back with
option.
the new language. It would still have a public hearing where people would give their time to speak on it, and it'd move forward and be approved on that second time.
As amended.
Do you need a motion to continue?
Well, so can we bring up the CAF?
Yeah, no, yeah, I guess.
So the CAF has the language to approve it.
No, but we could say, I move to continue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Mayor, I move to continue ordinance 2024-09 on second reading to a later unspecified date, hopefully within the year of 2024.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Curtelli, seconded by Councilmember Pappenfort. The motion is to continue ordinance 2024-09 on second reading to a date uncertain, but hopefully in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
That'd be great.
Sounded better than.
Yeah.
Further discussion?
Okay. Curtelli,
Yeah.
Montana,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Nacarado.
Yes.
The motion passed.
Okay, and that brings us to ordinance 2024-10, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, authorizing the execution and delivery of a site lease, a lease purchase agreement, and related documents in connection with the acquisition of certain property for city purposes, approving the forms of such documents, and providing for other matters relating thereto.
I'm crossing my fingers because I am hoping beyond hope.
Oh, and
that
I'm
our-
sorry, this is a second reading and a public hearing.
Yes.
And I will open up the public hearing and turn it over to my esteemed colleague.
I'm hoping beyond hope that our sound issues are resolved because our bond counsel, Butler Snow, with Representatives Kim Crawford and Courtney DeGuardi are going to speak to this.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, yay. I'm on my phone, so I'm having visual problems too. Okay.
Do you want to summarize what the ordinance is about?
Oh, sure. I was waiting for Amy to direct us, so my apologies. So thank you for having us again. We were here a couple weeks ago to talk about the ordinance and the process for approving the essentially a lease and a site lease to acquire a police annex at some point in the future, but for right now, it's just the land. So when we came last week or 2 weeks ago, we discussed the ordinance very briefly, but hasn't been changed for second reading. It's still, the parameters are still the same. As we discussed, it's a parameters ordinance, which means that once you approve this, you are, or if you approve it, you are delegating to the mayor, Amy and Christie, the ability to make final pricing determinations based on a quote that you got from the bank for this deal. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at all my documents together. But so anyway, so this ordinance, if you're looking in section 3, are the parameters. And the parameters allow you all to proceed as long as these items A through F are not exceeded. the quote that you received from Community Bank, from Collegiate Peaks Bank, shows that you're still within those pricing parameters. And once we get this approved and finalized, they will lock in a rate. But initially, the rate can't exceed what was the amounts that are in this ordinance. Those rates are, you can't, the lease term cannot extend beyond December 31, 2039. The site lease cannot extend beyond December 31, 2049. And it is common for a site lease to go 10 years longer than a lease. That's because if you would not appropriate, this bank would get to take over your property and use it for any legal purposes until the end of the site lease term. And at the end of that term, the property would come back to the city. The principal amount total that you can borrow is 1.4 million. There's a tax exempt rate of 5% and a taxable rate that cannot exceed 6.65%. The taxable rate would only come into effect if you do something that impacts the tax exempt status of this loan. Like use it for something private that's not related to your governmental purposes. The maximum annual repayment cost cannot exceed, the maximum total repayment cost cannot exceed 2.267195. So again, this is a parameters ordinance. Those are the parameters. The basic structure of this financing is that you would lease this property that you just acquired to Collegiate Peaks Bank under the site lease, and then they would lease it back to you under the lease. And you would make annually appropriated payments to them for you to occupy that facility until the termination of the lease. These are subject to annual appropriation. So again, if you need to determine on an annual basis whether you're going to make the payments. And if you do not, then Collegiate Peaks Bank can come in and use the property for whatever purposes they desire. So it's very similar to what you just did for your fire station financing, except that we're not issuing an actual security. So there's no certificate of participation. This is just a lease structure. So it's it's a smaller amount, so it was privately placed instead of sold to the market. But otherwise, I think it's pretty similar to what you just concluded. So I think those are all of what I consider to be the important terms. Of course, these are very long documents, and the lease and the site lease are on file. Nina and I believe Christy and Amy have all reviewed these. And if you approve these tonight, this ordinance will not be effective for 30 days. So during that time period, we will get the rate locked and finalize documents and proceed to financing this new facility. Are there any questions?
Yeah, questions for either Kim or for Amy this evening?
I do.
Yeah.
How did Collegiate Peaks Bank get the lease? How did we put that out there for them? I'm grateful that we got a local bank.
We worked with our municipal advisor, and an RFI was issued. I really am not sure of their process. I know that they sent it to some banks directly based on those that met certain criteria that they have. But I think it was publicly available as well. I'm not sure how they marketed the RFI. And unfortunately, I don't have a representative online for that. But there were
and I don't
several.
know how many responses they received, but this is the one that they determined was after consultation with the city, determined that this was the most favorable one.
And wasn't there an approved list that they were working off of, or?
They did provide me a list of people banks that they were going to send to directly, and I approved that, yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, Amy, is this complicated with the leasing, that Collegiate Peaks owns it and they're leasing it back to us? Is this all because of Tabor? I mean, because used to, you could just buy the building.
Right.
But is that all table
Yeah, this is
driven?
Yes,
This is because of table.
elect came out to this, yes.
Also, we just don't
Yeah,
have the funding
this
available.
This
to
is
just-
because of Tabor, because you cannot enter into multiple fiscal year financial obligations without an election. So unless you wanted to have an election to finance the purchase of this facility, the only other options are really lease purchase financings.
Thank you. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to hear it out loud.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, there's no applicant. How about public comment? Amy, did anyone sign up?
No.
So no one signed up? Anyone online? Okay. Nothing to rebut. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and that'll take us to the preliminary council discussion. Who'd like to begin?
Now, I'll just repeat what Suzanne said. I'm thrilled that a local bank was able to get this.
I guess I'm gonna say, do see the need for us to have a new police department or a new police station. I took a peek upstairs and it's very tiny in there, and it doesn't do our police department well. It doesn't serve them well. However, I do want to point out just the process that we are going through for this. I asked you guys last meeting how much it's gonna cost to do it. And there's no really sure answer. We haven't done a full cost analysis, a full needs analysis. It's just important to remember there's a process and a system to follow. And there's, in a way, also a hierarchy to follow, right? Like, we have our constituents who we answer to, and then you guys answer to us. And so this is how it's supposed to go in that way, in that hierarchy. This is not our money to be spending. And I just think that moving forward, we need to make sure we use the system and process that we have in place. And that's all I want to say.
So I'm curious, because we did have this vetted by our finance the group. I mean, so we did look at cost. I mean, they took a look at it. So I'm curious.
So if you look at the last two budgets that are online, long-term goals, nothing about a new police department.
Right. And I think we explained that when we talked about how this sort of fell in our laps, and it was an opportunity to find a piece of land or a building on a piece of land that not only could meet current needs, but could meet needs out for the next 30, maybe 40 years at a price well below what it would have cost to actually build a new building. So, opportunities come along outside of what's in the plan, and sometimes you jump on them, and other times you say it's not the right thing. Go ahead.
I'm with Councilmember Martin in that I agree to purchasing this piece of property right now for all those reasons, and I still want to see us go through the process, the feasibility assessment, the needs assessment, and understand how and how the police department will be built, what are the needs, what's the feasibility of making sure our police department gets what they need. I still want us to go through that process for this piece of property.
And I guess it was based off of land scarcity. We're limited in that, in opportunity and just in land, in space. So it's kind of jumping at that opportunity, knowing that we aren't ready to fully follow through, but just to have access to space in which to do it. I think it's rare, and it doesn't come every day, and especially not at this type of rate.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those opportunities you have to move fast on, because if we do take the time to of course, those things need to happen. We need to know what it's going to take to make this into a workable police station. But at this point, it's the sellers could, say, we can't hold on to it that long. They have to move it. They can't sit on a building like that and just pay the mortgage, nothing going on. So we have to move fast. So I think if we do purchase it, and then we go through that process and we find out that it's not feasible to turn that into a police station, then we can turn around and sell it off if that's, but that, I think that's that's where we're kind of looking at.
I guess I'm just kind of getting at, like, there is a cost to doing things so quickly, and that's losing the trust of our voters, is all
Yeah,
I'm saying.
no, I understand
They
that for
don't
sure.
feel like that's transparent. Like, I'm just saying what's been told to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I do appreciate council, hearing us out on this topic and thinking through it thoroughly, and, point well taken, of course, but all of you have good points. I think that we did do our best to bring it forward as quickly as we could and get your direction, which we received, so thank you.
So I'm sitting now, I mean, we could either buy this property at the price that we're looking at, was it 1.4 million, 1.2 million? Or down the line, we could be spending, another 14, 15 million on buying property and building a brand new facility down the line. So, I mean, we're definitely coming in way underneath that market, that price for sure.
Yeah, I'm well aware that it's a good deal. I'm well aware it's gonna be more expensive in the future. I just want to make sure we're all well aware that our constituents are not happy about the process of it. That's all I'm saying.
Some of them.
So it's interesting you bring that up. I have heard from a couple of people, but on a lot of issues, I would hear from a lot more than a couple of people. So I know there were a few people that spoke against it, and I respect the fact that they had concerns, but I have not experienced much pushback from the community on this. And one thing I will say is that we've been really effective as an organization in terms of getting DOLA grants. And at some point, we're going to have the opportunity to go after some of those grant dollars that will help us to pay for the work we're going to do in that department. I hear you. I wish we could have been more transparent. I wish there had been more time for a more public process. But with real estate acquisition, that just doesn't always work that way.
Right, and I had both sides of that, Wales, talk to me. And some of them were like, why are we doing this so quickly? What is happening with the police department? Are they hiring too many people? Don't they have enough room in that big, huge building downtown? So they don't realize that this big, huge building is where they're crowded upstairs. And I understand you peeked up there. I understand the process. Sometimes it goes quickly, and sometimes you're right, we should slow down and make a different decision. In this one, I'm fully supporting this process, the quickly process.
Yeah, I think it would have been irresponsible for us to make any other decision to not take advantage of something that was so incredibly affordable and a nice-sized property with a building on it. That's what representative government is about. If we had citizens voting on every single thing and weighing in on every single thing, we wouldn't be able to get things done. And sometimes we have to act swiftly. And that was the determination made by all the finance department, or the committee, when we looked at all of this, like, we have to do this. And I'm sorry that it ruffles some feathers. I like it when we know what the capital improvement plans are and we can have more notice out there. And staff has made a commitment to do that for us. So I think we're in a good place.
Anything else? How about a
Are
motion?
you waiting for the motion?
I'm waiting for a motion.
I
If
move to
someone's-
approve ordinance 2024-10 on second reading.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Pappenfort, seconded by Councilmember Fontana. The motion is to approve ordinance 2024-10 on second reading. Further discussion?
Okay. Pappenfort,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Fontana.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great,
Thanks,
thank you. And next up is ordinance 2024-11, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Salida, Colorado, approving a lease of real property located at 348 H Street from the City of Salida to Hilton Lumber LLC. This is also a second reading and public hearing. I will open the public hearing, and I will turn it over,
It's me.
okay.
Me this
Okay.
time.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Good evening. Before you is ordinance 2024-11 and the associated lease with Hilton Lumber. As I mentioned a couple weeks ago, the city of Salida entered into a 20-year lease with Hilton Lumber back in 2003 for almost an acre of land located across kind of between 3rd and 5th Street, next to H. So it runs along the spur trail next to Hilton Lumber. Hilton Lumber uses it primarily for storage. So because it is a multi-year lease, it comes before you in the form of an ordinance. We will be continuing the term of the lease and the monthly payment through 2024, and there are incremental increases annually over the next 5 years, as noted in the attached lease. I've been working with the business owners. They are amenable to the lease that's before you, so I am recommending approval as well. Staff's recommending approval, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Christie? I would just say that I was involved in this as well, and I think we came to a fair resolution of this in that, we were at a below market rate lease, and we're going to incrementally ramp it up over the next few years, which seemed fair to all parties concerned.
Good summary.
Yeah. Okay, there is no applicant. Do we have any public comment?
Oh, wait,
Sorry.
that's public hearing?
Do we have?
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is for the public.
I'm guessing no, but
Here, I'm gonna check.
And you might just glance at all those papers while you're up.
no one? And nobody online? Okay, very good. No need for rebuttal. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and that'll take us to preliminary council discussion.
I think it's a great deal like you summarized. We talked about it extensively last time.
Yeah, I agree. At the first one, we were talking about the hike in price, and then decided to move it up in increments. I think that was a great idea to move that way. So.
Well, and I hope the business owner feels that way too.
They do.
They
do. We had a good conversation with them.
Good.
Yep. All that remains would be a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 24-11, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Salida, Colorado, approving a lease of real property located at 348 Street from the City of Salida to Hilton Lumber LLC on second reading.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Fontana, seconded by Councilmember Stevens. The motion is to approve ordinance 2024-11, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Salida, Colorado, approving a lease of real property located at 348 H Street from the City of Salida to Hilton Lumber LLC on second reading. Further discussion?
Fontana,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
The motion passed.
Okay, and now we're on to new business and approve the City of Salida's social media policy.
All right, good evening, council. So what we're bringing forward is a brand-new City of Salida social media policy. To my knowledge, we have not had one before, so it's exciting new waters. So as you all know, social media is a public forum subject to First Amendment protections, and can also be subject to CORA, Colorado Open Meetings Law, and the Colorado Open Records Act. So we wanted to address all of our social media platforms, recognize that, the internet is ever changing, and encourage the use of social media to further the goals of the city and establish some really good, clear guidelines for not only how staff should be using social media, how social media should be presented out to the community, and also how committees and boards should be using social media. This policy has been reviewed by our department heads and by our city attorneys, and what we're bringing to you all is the last draft of it.
Questions?
I'm glad to see this come forward. I think it was a real potential area of risk, and so, good job.
I think this is a good time to talk about the proposal of a forum that came to us, and maybe Nina needs to address that, or Sarah, you can, about what we would be allowed to do via Colorado Open Meetings Law with this idea of a forum that was presented to us.
I don't know if Nina.
Tina, I think is on.
Yeah, we saw her earlier.
Yes, so you're correct that it would create a public forum. That's why I don't recommend. I recommend if a community member wants to do a forum, local governments should not be in the business of, replicating social media itself, for many reasons. And one is including that it would be creating a public forum that we would then need to make sure we're following all the proper protocols. I highly, strongly do not recommend that.
And so just to reiterate, if we were to have a forum that had more than one council person on it, that would be defying Colorado Open's meeting.
3 or more, yeah, if you're having a conversation about something substantive.
Okay.
And then just the fact of the city hosting that public forum versus a private company is not recommended. I mean, we do have our Facebook page, but to extend it beyond that is, again, local governments are in the business of doing that. I'm not aware of any local government who does that, and I see far too many pitfalls. Open meetings law, First Amendment, that kind of thing.
And I would just weigh in a little bit and say, I appreciate when citizens bring forth ideas. I think it really helps us with our jobs. I think, though, in this case, I think about how much easier this job would have been pre-social media. And I just look at what goes on in these forums, the misinformation, the divisiveness, the anger. And I've never once seen two people get into it on social media and one person say, hey, that's a really good point, you changed my mind. It doesn't happen. And I think it would be opening this colossal can of worms for the city. I really do believe that having people talking to us either in council chambers or giving us a phone call, it adds a layer of civility that is sadly absent on social media.
I was going to say that regarding time, I think if there were a forum for us, that it would be completely feasible that I could spend all day, every day on that forum. And so just want to also be thoughtful of our time too, as council people. Many of us have day jobs too, and then we give our time at these meetings on Mondays and Tuesday nights, first and third Monday and Tuesday night of every month. I understand that it's uncomfortable to come to the mic, and I've talked a lot about the difficulty with not being able to have back and forth conversation, and how can we change the agenda to make that less so. So I understand that's hard. I had a hard time with it too when I wasn't on council, but this is where and how we give our time, our valuable time.
I kind of agree with the mayor and everybody else. Yeah, I think here's the place, face to face, because you can fall down rabbit holes in those social media, people coming up and for the lack of a better term, I guess, trolling out there that have nothing better to do but to, get on social media and then, definitely, it can get bad. So I'm kind of the same.
I was going to say too, kind of to Dominique's point, this is a business meeting. It's like not the time to have a lot of discussions, like with the public. Maybe not in the way that they would like, but that's why we also do offer, I'm sure everyone offers, you know, coffee, like just whenever we have time, meet us at the farmer's market. There are 2 council members there, or the mayor, a staff person there as well, every Saturday, every other, I don't know. But either way, like we try to make ourselves accessible, and this is a business meeting. We're not here to casually chat.
Yeah, I got an email the day after July 4th and responded that day. And I just remember the person was like blown away that they had gotten a response like that. And I think that's how we can really show people that we're here and we want to listen and we're there for them, so.
I'd even take that one step further as far as, there's some forums already existing on Facebook that I would advise members of council, if they want to maintain their mental health, to avoid. Because it's just, it's the kind of vitriol that you would never get in the real world. And because trolls, I guess, turn to stone when the sun hits their skin. So that's what I have to say about that.
I just want to second that comment that I've never turned down an offer to have coffee, a request to have coffee or meet with somebody face to face. And I'm happy to give that time as well as answering emails when they come to me. So invite the public to reach out to us that way. And I'm thankful to the city for using social media as a platform to promote city happenings and that's it. Thanks.
And if I could chime in on that, I'm happy for citizens to text me, but please say I'm a Salida citizen, so I know who you are, because I am being scammed, attempted to be scammed all day long, every day. And I also have a full-time job, and I can't I can't not work when I'm there. So give me some time to get back to you, let me know who you are, and let's have a conversation. We'll meet in person, we'll text, we'll, talk on the phone. Whatever you're comfortable with, I'm comfortable with it too.
If there's no more discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the City of Salida social media policy.
Second.
So I have a motion from Councilmember Pappenford, seconded by Councilmember Nacarado, and the motion is to approve the City of Salida social media policy. Further discussion?
Nacarado?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Pappenfort?
Yes.
Montana?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Critelli?
Yes.
The motion passed.
And resolution, next up, Resolution 2024-44, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, finding the Salida School District annexation petition to be in substantial compliance with state statutes and setting a public hearing on said petition. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you. So this is a resolution declaring substantial compliance for an annexation application which we received for the Salida School District property located at 627 Oak Street. This resolution is a part of a multi-step process that is outlined in state statute. It is the first step of that process, and this resolution is to set the public hearing on September 3rd. The staff recommends or finds that the proposed annexation is in substantial compliance with city and state statutes and recommends the City Council adopt the proposed resolution. And there is a motion there. When you're ready, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, questions? I would entertain a motion if there's no questions.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 2024-44, declaring the Salida School District annexation is in substantial compliance with city ordinances and state statutes and setting a public hearing for September 3rd, 2024.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Fontana, seconded by Councilmember Gertelli, and the motion is to approve Resolution 2024-44, declaring the Salida School District annexation is in substantial compliance with city ordinances and state statutes, and setting a public hearing for September 3rd, 2024. Further discussion?
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Fontana.
Yes.
The motion passed.
Okay, thank you. And next up, ordinance 2024-12, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, amending Chapter 11 of the Salida Municipal Code regarding construction and excavation in the streets, sidewalks, and public property to establish a procedure for the undergrounding of utility facilities. This is a first reading and setting a second reading and public hearing. Thanks, David.
Good evening. As noted, so Chapter 11 is kind of our chapter of code that talks about streets and our right-of-ways and what happens within them. This is really more of an administrative update to get into more of the details of the undergrounding of facilities. Facilities specifically referring to basically overhead power lines, fiber, communication, that sort of thing. And right now, there's a section, basically one sentence in the code that pertains to this that talks about utilities shall be undergrounded, period. But it doesn't get into the details. And so as we kind of all know, there's a lot of overhead lines in the old part of town, and then the new subdivisions look differently because they're all underground. And this really bridges the gap and defines when they go underground, who's responsible for it, the timing and those sort of things. So it's really just some language to flesh out the details.
Okay.
So.
Any questions for David? Looks pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Short and sweet.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 2024-12 on first reading and set the second reading and public hearing for August 6, 2024.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Gertelli, seconded by Councilmember Stevens. The motion is to approve ordinance 2024-12 on first reading and set the second reading and public hearing for August 6, 2024. Further discussion?
Fontana,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
The motion passed.
Okay, and that brings us to council reports. And I love the fact that they're not in alphabetical order. So Councilmember Nacarado, you're on first.
Okay. Well, I have a couple of things regarding natural resources that have come to fruition. The first is a weed walk with the Chaffey County Weed Department. That's coming up next Wednesday, July 24th at 5:30 p.m. And we'll be walking the Salida River Trail out of the parking lot at Marvin Park. So the parking lot that's furthest east, I would say, Marvin Park, and accesses the Salida River Trail there. So we just got approval today, so I will reach out to partners who are interested in this kind of thing, partner organizations, for them to help promote it. And I hope city council and staff will try to be there as well. We won't be pulling any weeds on July 24th. We are just doing some weed identification. The interest came from my comments about cheatgrass previously, and so we'll be identifying cheatgrass as well as some other weeds, but also looking at how one can restore their yard or landscape from these weeds once you pull them. And one of the weeds we'll look at is kochia. We are running up against our last chance to mow kochia without spreading the 50,000 seeds that plant can carry. It's also known as tumbleweed. So that's coming. Just wanted to make an announcement about that. If you want to know what kochia looks like, come out next Wednesday, July 24th. And then we are also doing a restoration project on the South Arkansas with the city on July 26th in partnership with Central Colorado Conservancy's Hands for Lands in an effort to prevent further erosion of that South Arkansas bank. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And we'll put out some more information about that really soon.
Thank you. Councilmember Pappenfort.
I never go to the Brewers Fest, but I did this time because of the band. because you know what it takes to get me to go out. That's what it is. And I was so impressed with the firemen. They had a station set up where they were giving out water, and they were just so awesome. I love seeing them, and I love there to be water at events where there's alcohol. And what a great bunch of heroes to be pouring water. They filled my water bottle completely up. Love those guys. That's all I have.
Was it an IPA or was it actually water?
No, it was water.
All right, thanks. Councilmember Stevens?
No, I have nothing for that.
Nothing. Councilmember Martin?
Yeah, I actually just kind of want to take this time to clarify something that I read in the paper on Friday. The City Council of Salida is not requiring a 0.5% increase in sales tax in order to fund the housing authority. What is happening is the housing authority approached us, as well as the town of Buena Vista, as well as the county, asking if we would support them in asking the voters for a 0.5% increase of a sales tax. That number also came after there were surveys done that the housing authority did. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we are not implementing this increase of sales tax for the housing authority. This will be coming on the ballot in this November. So just wanted to clarify that. And that is all for this evening. Thank you.
Thanks. Councilmember Critelli?
Yeah, I guess just to follow up, I think it's clear to me that council has established that the idea of a plan development is still unclear on our website, and we should make strides to make sure that it is as clear as humanly possible. And I'd even offer up my, if you want to do like a video, I would offer up my acting prowess to be a part of such a video, just to really be super clear on what a plan development is. And I guess also when it comes to our civility invocation, I do believe that it could be a poster up on our wall so that it doesn't take 10 minutes to read. I think it, maybe just like a quick summation of those points are always nice. Whether or not we follow them is another. That would kind of lead me to something that happened at this meeting. I respect everybody that sits on this dais because they have been voted by the people to represent them. So you're not just you are who you represent, and you are the voice amplification of that. So if you take a long time or if you need to reiterate a point, I give you that time to do that. I gladly, out of respect. And I certainly don't throw any cusses or get into a tizzy because of trying to better understand something. I give you that time. I give everybody that speaks actually in this council chambers the time that they are allotted and that they need to work out philosophical parts of what we're discussing or just ironing out those details. And I expect from that respect the same. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I would support Councilmember Critelli's idea around maybe at a future work session, maybe we could as a council just discuss the civility invocation and the direction we want to go with it. But I think it would be a good conversation for all of us to have.
And I believe it was brought up maybe at the last one or the one before, so it's on a work session, I think the 5th of August, so we do have that.
Okay, not a problem. You're covered.
You
Okay.
can bring samples of what a poster might look like as well, though, perhaps.
that's great.
Councilmember Fontana.
Okay, so I also was not at the Brewers. I've never been to the Brewers Rendezvous, but I heard so many good things about it this weekend. Very positive. I did hear about the firemen, just like you did, doing the water, and everything I heard was very positive. I don't know, maybe there were some other things, but the the fire department and the police department. It was very positive to have that downtown. I did attend the Air Force Academy band concert, and I did see our treasurer there also. And that was wonderful. I appreciate the people that put on that event, the Air Force Academy band that came, and it's a wonderful event, and I've gone several years, and so I encourage next year, hopefully after, July 4th, we can have that again. I also attended the Chris Collins, John Denver event at the steam plant, and it was wonderful. Thank you to the coordinators. The steam plant, I don't know if they get enough credit for putting on their events. They were great down there, and it, $25 a ticket, I think anybody local can go to those things. It makes a concert so much better that you get to drive 5 minutes, go to a concert, and then go home. And so that was good. I really appreciate keeping that affordable. And then the last thing is Chaffey County Fair is coming July 26th through the beginning of August. So I hope everybody can get out and support the local kids, the Chaffey County youth, and the fair has a lot of work to do out there. So if everybody can try to support that, then that would be great for those kids. And that's all.
Thank you. I just had a few things tonight. First off, I'm going to jump on the bandwagon with our fire department, but not for Brewers Rendezvous, but rather for all the work they put into the 4th of July and the fireworks. They knocked it out of the park. People worked really long hours, and the community really, really appreciated it. So thank you. Second thing I wanted to address, I know earlier in public comment, there were some comments made about Poncha and the sewer extension, and I want everyone here, this is for the public to know that we attended a mediation in late June, and it was the first meeting we've had where both sides seemed willing to continue the conversation, which is a big step forward. And there is a follow-up mediation scheduled at the end of August. The reason it's the end of August is because the mediator, who did a really good job with both parties, that was the next first time that she was available. So this isn't a discussion we're going to be having in an open forum. The whole idea with a mediation is to get the parties in conflict together and try to work out a resolution. And so we're going to keep it in that mediated session. Both parties, both Poncha and the developers who brought the suit and Salida agreed to that. So we're gonna honor that. But I want the public to know that meetings are being held. So that's the second thing I wanted to address. The last thing I wanted to do, I want to reiterate an offer that I made probably 6 or 8 weeks ago. I know there's a few people in the community who have concerns about council and staff having dinner before a meeting. That meeting is open to any and all of you. And I also want to address, there was a letter written recently that talked about the lavish dinners. Tonight we had Safeway fried chicken and potato salad. Last week it was tacos. Other times it's been pizza. We had frozen lasagnas. I'm really grateful, really appreciative for all the food we get before some of these long meetings, but to call it lavish is at best a stretch. And that's all that I have tonight. And then next up, we have our treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to the general fund, budget versus actual, I'm very happy to report that we're favorable there. And then on to the sales tax reports. Our May sales tax collections increased by about $20,000 or about 2.3% compared to May of 2023. The city's portion of the Chaffey County sales tax collections increased by $9,500 approximately, or about 3.2% over May of 2023. In total, our sales tax receipts are 2.6% higher for May and 3.6% higher year to date. Actual collections are 1% behind budget year to date, and that budget is based throughout historical proportions. It's not really evenly throughout the year, so. But overall, we're looking good. So it's the end of my comments.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I say?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I should mention this. I just wanted to say I was able to make it to the commissioners meeting last Wednesday, and the airport received a Airport of the Year award, which is something I feel like I need to say out there. And then also Another big thing that's coming up in the next couple of days, this weekend, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, is the Rocky Mountain Rampage, which is at the skate park, the new skate park here in town. Big event, a lot of pro skaters coming to town. So get out there and enjoy those skaters.
And Councilmember Stevens is favored to win the competition. Okay, maybe not.
Stretch. It's like lavish.
Anything from our attorney?
Not tonight, thank you.
Okay. Department updates. I know we had them in the packet, but anything else?
Nothing else, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Very good. So okay, I'm gonna. We have an executive session, so can I ask you to make this motion? This is really the first part.
Mr. Mayor, I move to go into executive session for discussion of personnel matter under CRS Section 24-6-4024F, and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session, any member of this body or any elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of this body or of an elected official, or personnel policies that do not require the discussion of matters personal to particular employees. And the following additional details are provided for identification purposes. The 6-month performance evaluation with the city administrator.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Nacarado, seconded by Councilmember Critelli, and the motion is to go into executive session for discussion of a personnel matter under CRS Section 24-6-4024F, and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session, any member of this body or any elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of this body or of an elected official or personnel policies that do not require the discussion of matters personal to particular employees. And the following additional details are provided for identification purposes. 6-month performance evaluation with the city administrator. Further discussion?
Nacarado?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Pappenfort? Yes. Montana?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Fratelli?
Yes.
The motion passed.
And are we staying in here or are we going?
Everybody left, so.
Record. Seeing none, the next agenda item would be a
It's okay.
motion
It's
to adjourn.
recording on.
I move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night.
Does anybody